Luke chapter 16. Luke chapter 16, and I'm reading the NIV version. I had 1 through 9, Brother Vince, but I'm going to read all the way down to 13 today. If you would stand for the reading of God's word. Luke 16. It reads, Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I am not strong enough to dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, how much do you owe my master? 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down, quickly, make it 450. Then he asked the second, how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, take your bill, then make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager. Let me read that again. I want to make sure y'all get this. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Verse 10, whoever can be trusted in very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? And this is the one that all y'all know. No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Amen. He that had ears to hear, let him hear today. Amen. You may be seated. Amen. We want to use for a take-home thought this morning, justified and unjust. Justified and unjust. Justified and unjust. How is it that you can be justified and unjust? Life often presents us with situations that is a paradox. This lesson that we learned today is a paradox, and a paradox is a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement, or a proposition that when investigated or explained proves to be found true. This parable is often called the unjust steward. Some writers call it the dishonest manager, which itself presents a paradox. And it brings to question, and scholars have fought over it and they've talked about it, that this is the most difficult parable to understand. I told Brother Tyler I almost skipped over it. I just didn't want to deal with it because I just couldn't really wrap my head around it, because this parable is not preached very often, not taught very often. But the Lord has told us that this is something that we need to know, because it's about this dishonest manager and how he's justified and unjust, which is almost an oxymoron. We know what an oxymoron is when you say icy hot, right? Or you say something like pretty ugly, The Walking Dead, or organized chaos. Or this one get me all the time when people say it's the original copy. Or somebody say, give me a whole piece. But it's these questions, that bring about the controversy here in the text, and it makes us think to ourselves, how is this man unjust, but yet he's justified? And here's the biggest thing: Jesus commends a crook. It's a problem. It's a problem here in the text. It's a problem here in the text. And for years, people have debated, and they didn't understand what it meant. And I pray to God that he opens this up for us today so that we can truly understand what this parable it means. If you look at it, there's no pretext to it. You look at verse 16. Normally, every parable that we read, there's been something that came before it that to explain what the parable was talking about. The reason why that is because this is a continuation of chapter 15. Everybody see that? Keep your Bibles open. Put that back on the screen so they can see it, man. They sleep this morning. Put that back up, Brother Vince. It's a continuation of chapter 15. And so with it being a continuation of chapter 15, Jesus is still talking. After he tells the parable of the prodigal son and he finished talking about the elder brother, he keeps talking, but now he directs his attention now to the disciples. While the Pharisees are still listening, now he is teaching the disciples. And in this parable, he's talking about something that we are afraid to talk about in church. He talks about money. Something that we just don't want to talk. Every time we talk about money, everybody gets scratching their head. Here we go, Pastor, talking about money. But if you really look at Jesus' teachings, like one out of every 5 of Jesus' parables was talking about money or dealt with money. And that's just the nature of it. Jesus understood that money would be something that we couldn't live with, and we can't live without. So we can break this down. I want to break this down to help you with your understanding of this parable, and this will help you a lot because if you look at the characters in the text, okay, the characters in the text, it says a certain rich man. All right, and I'm going to need some crowd participation today. Y'all gotta help me preach this thing, all right? A certain rich man. And so if you're reading the text, who do you think the certain rich man would be? Y'all just quiet, boy. It's going to be a long morning, Sister Patrick. It's going to be a long morning. The certain rich man would be God. Everybody see that? Okay, I'm going to make it plain. The certain rich man will be God. Then if you look at the manager or the steward who is employed by the certain rich man, then that would be who? Us. Oh, now we got it. All right, there we go. And then the other character that's in the text is the debtor, those who are in debt to the master, and the ones who are in debt would be the unbelievers. Everybody see that? If you understand it and see it that way, this is to help us to understand this because as I talk about keeping it super simple, this wasn't simple to me. I'll be honest with you. This was slightly difficult because it makes us have to dig a little deeper and understand the original context. But it keeps presenting paradoxes, things that are difficult to understand. And he opens up with a paradox of his own. The first part of the text opens up and he says, a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. And he called him in and said, what are you doing? What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management. And the first paradox that we see here is what's yours doesn't belong to you. Think about it. What's yours doesn't belong to you. Because he's talking about a steward here. And in the Greek, a steward is a manager, somebody that oversees an account, somebody that oversees business, somebody that oversees the household. And so basically what he's saying is a steward is somebody that whatever has been put into your hands, you are to advance it for the glory of God. Y'all gonna get it. Y'all gonna get it. Don't worry, it's coming. It's coming. So a biblical stewardship is broken down. Peter says it like this: as each has received a gift, he says, employ it in serving one another as good managers of the grace of God in its various forms. If anyone speaks, let it be as if it was the very words of God. If anyone serves, let it be as of the strength which God supplies, that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory and the dominion forever and ever. Amen. So what he's saying to us here is that all belongs to God. Your money, your finances, your investments, your car, your house. Watch this, your kids. Yeah, you know, a lot of time they're my kids. My kids. You know, we say it with so much fervor. That's my child. Not only is it just, not even your kids, but watch this, your life. Your life doesn't even belong to you. But he makes us, and he tells us that we have to be stewards over these things, because that means that now we have to be stewards, and we have to be found faithful in how we steward, how we manage our life, our money, our household, how we manage our kids, how you even manage your money. And if you aren't faithful in the lesser things, then how can the hand of Christ give you those things that are greater? How we manage our money. Watch this. A good steward remembers who he works for. A good steward understands that he's employed by God. A good steward understands that this is not just me working, but when I work, I represent God. When they see me, they should see God. So as a steward, watch this, when I speak, I don't speak like Peter said, I don't speak as if I'm speaking of myself, but I speak as if God is speaking through me. When I serve, come on, when I serve, I'm not serving for me, but I'm serving as if I am serving for God. Being a good manager of money releases you from being a slave to money. Being a good manager of money releases you from being a slave to money. Those of us who are robbing Peter to pay Paul, and those of us whose bills are piling up, and you look at your bills and you just throw them to the side, find ourselves being slaves to our money because of we aren't good managers. We aren't good stewards. And so more than anything, we feel like more money should bring us more freedom. The Apostle Biggie Smalls said, more money, more problems. And so what happens is that we think getting more money, we think getting to a different position, we think gaining more status will allow us more freedom, when really and truly, if you just manage the little bit that you have, it'll release you and not allow you to be a slave to money. And this is the most important thing that's in the beginning of the text is at some point you will be called into account for how you steward your money. Isn't that something? Not just your tithes. See, that's when we get twisted. Not just your tithes, not just your offering, but you will be called into account for how you have stewarded all of your money. How you've managed it, how you've seen it. And I like what it says in here. It says he wasted his possessions, because we understand this word wasted. It means squandered. And if you remember from a couple of weeks ago, there was somebody else that squandered their money. You see the parallel now. You can see the parallel, because the prodigal son went out and squandered his money. And here it is now. You have this manager. He squandered his master's money. What's yours doesn't belong to you. And then watch this. Watch what the manager does. Watch what the master does. The master tells him, look here, man. Can I make it plain? Look here, man. You done messed over too much money. I don't know where it's going. It's not balancing up. So you got to go. Go get the account books. Go get the book. Go clean out your desk. It's time for you to go. And so what we see here is this. Here's another paradox is that what's kept needs to be let go. I don't want to dabble too much, but a lot of times we are keeping things that we truly need to let go of. There are some things that have been that are not allowing us to grow and not allowing us to be able to manage it because we should have cut it off a long time ago. There are some people that we can't get beyond, and what we really need to do is for us to be able to grow. It is time for us to really just cut them off. And here we learn from the master is that we learn business skills, we learn relational skills, that as soon as he finds out about his dishonesty, immediately he takes action and he lets him go. But how many times we want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt? How many times we want to give somebody a second chance, knowing that they are dishonest and knowing that they can't be able to perform the duties that we ask them to do, and we give them more and more chances. And here's what we do. We continue to allow them to hinder us from growing. And I stopped by to tell you today that like many of us should do in our literal lives, we need to cancel some subscriptions. If you look at your finances and you go through that, you got Amazon, you got this bag and Macy's, and we subscribe to all of these things. And really and truly, figuratively and literally, you have to cancel some subscriptions. Some people need to be canceled. Some things need to be canceled. It's been holding on too long, and the bill is getting longer, and it's time to let go. So my question to you is, who are you holding on to that needs to be canceled? What are you holding on to that needs to be canceled? Because God is telling us right now that if they can't perform the duty, you got to cut them off. 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 But then he gets to this. And he says, I know what I'll do. I'm about to get fired. I know exactly what I'll do. Here's what I'll do. I'm gonna call in all of my master's debtors. And watch what he says. He says, the manager says to himself, I know what I'll do. My master's taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig. That means, guess what? I don't have any other abilities. I've been rich all my life. I've been working in the office all my life. These hands ain't made. I'm telling y'all the truth right now. These hands ain't made to hold no hammers. That's what he said. He said, I can't dig. And then watch what he said. He said, I got too much pride to beg. So watch what he starts figuring out, and he comes up with a plan. And he comes up with the plan, and he says, he calls in one of the debtors, and he said, how much do you owe? And the man said, 900 gallons of olive oil. He said, I tell you what, sit down, quick. Write 450. The other said he had 100 bushels of wheat. He said, how much do you owe? He said, 100 bushels of wheat. He said, sit down, quick. Write 800. And so now you can see his dishonesty. His dishonesty, and we see it, and this is what really brings about the problem, because after he does this, watch what happens in verse number 8. He said, the master commended the dishonest manager. Now this messed me up. I hope it messed y'all up too. Because here he is being dishonest, and he's telling them to sit down quick, hurry up, write this down. And then he comes back and says he commends him. See, in our context, this is something that we would feel like, nah, man, that don't work like that. But if you were in that Jewish time and you understand Jewish custom, you would understand it a little differently. So let me break it down for you. So in Jewish custom, it was unlawful to tax other Jews. So Jews could not tax. This is in Leviticus 25. You could not tax other Jews, but what he did was he had tacked on his commission. So what they would do is, as managers, is they would be in charge of the entire account. And so what they would do, they would tack on their commission, almost like the tax collectors. What's them people call? They call your house all the time? Not the IRS. Bill collectors. And so they tacked on his commission. And so therefore, watch what he was doing. He was decreasing the amount that would have been his commission. Does that make sense? So therefore, instead of charging 900, he was charging 450. So he was taking away his commission, and he wasn't getting anything. And so now what had happened is now he's taking away what would come to him and what he would normally get to make sure that they would have something cheaper. And so, of course, the people who are the debtors thinking, oh, man, he's hooking me up. So, of course, you're going to be a friend to somebody who's hooking you up. So now he's creating a capacity. He's creating relationships. He's cultivating relationships, and he is not getting anything. And so in Jewish time, they would have saw them and said, oh, I got it now. I got it now. But here's what we need to see in it is that as he removes his commission, he begins to make friends. And what that shows us is that sometimes, here's the other paradox, sometimes we have to decrease in order to increase. He didn't, it didn't matter to him anymore about himself. He rebuked himself and said, I don't even care about me, but I'm more so cared about now. Now I got to make friends. Now I got to get some people around me that truly care about me for who I am. And so I'm going to decrease and give up what I normally would have so that somebody else could have a blessing. So he chose to manage his money, and he cultivated relationships. So and this just doesn't benefit him, but who else does it benefit? It benefits the master because, of course, the people who have been given this discount are saying, oh, man, the master, all right. See it from a spiritual angle now when we're able to use our money, when we're able to use our money and give our money to those who are less fortunate, and we're able to give of ourselves and give our time and our money to somebody else, when they see us, remember, they don't just see us, but they see the master. And so when they see us doing these things, when they see us giving these things, now they're not only happy that we are doing it, but now they're saying, look at what God is doing in my life. So this is kind of an evangelistic approach that shows us how we can be able to go out and help and be able to bring the world into Christ by showing them who God is. And the only way that we can show them who God is by giving, because that's just who God is. He is a giver. He is a giver. If you can see it in the text, I hope you can see it. There's a parallel in the text to the prodigal son. There's a parallel in the text to the prodigal son. If you look at the beginning of prodigal son in verse 11, and then you look at chapter 16 and 1, it starts off the same way. It says, a certain man. Yeah. Then it goes on, and then he says that both of them squandered away money. The next thing is both of them have an aha moment. Remember, the prodigal son in the pig pen says he came to his senses. And then here, this man said, I know what I'll do. We see the parallel, and both of them found themselves, watch this, they found themselves being homeless. The prodigal son didn't have anywhere to go, and so guess what? He longed to go home, and now this man was getting ready to get put out of his job and get fired. He had nowhere to go. He longed for home. He longed for a house to be in. We see the parallel there. They longed to gain relationship, but both of them did the same thing. They decreased in order to increase. They decrease in order to increase. But I need you to see it like this. It was the master calling into accountability of him being unjust that triggers him to rectify his relationship with others. Let me break it down. The word shrewd, we look at shrewd as a negative connotation, but the word shrewd in the Bible means wise. So to say he was a shrewd manager means that he was a wise manager. Break it down a little bit further for you. Remember when you were younger and your mama would give you some jeans to put on, and them jeans got too small, and she would cut them jeans, and then them jeans became shorts? That was being shrewd. Everybody remember when your mama wore, all the fellas remember this, your mama wore pantyhose and then she get a hole in her stockings? And then she cut the stocking out, and you took that same stocking and put it on your head. And so you could have some waves. That was being shrewd. Remember when we didn't have much, and they threw the slaves all the slops, and they threw them all of this, all the leftovers, and they gathered it all and made this roux. Put it all in and boiled it, and then they made it gumbo. That's being shrewd. So it's taking the little and being able to make sure that we're wise enough to take it and turn it into something great. You need to understand that, because this is important, because as we decrease and then we begin to increase, what we see here in the text is, in order to get right with the master, this man had to get right with other people. That's the thing. If you don't get nothing else out of this message, I need you to see it, that in order for him to get right with the master, because the master had fired him. But it wasn't until after he had got right with people that then he commended him. What is that saying? What are you saying, Pastor? What I'm saying to you is that this may be, and I will argue that this is more about money, but it's more about relationships. It's more about relationship. If you look at the cross, this cross, it goes up vertically because it understands that we must have a vertical relationship with God, but it also goes out horizontally, which means that as a Christian, you got to have some relationships with other people, and your relationship with other people also cultivates your relationship with God. He's being commended. He's being commended for getting right with the same people that he once used to get over on. Think about that. He's getting commended for getting right with the same people that he once used to get over on. This parable is more about money. What Jesus is saying is I care about people more than I care about money. It's not just about money. It's about relationships. It's not just about money matters. It's about relationships. So it's making sure that we understand that it's interesting how we treat people when we don't know that we need them. Or as we often say, you never know what you miss until it's gone. It's amazing how you treat people until you're going to know that you need them. And so what happens is we don't operate effectively in the kingdom of God because we don't know how to treat people. And how can you be a Christian and struggle with learning and knowing how to treat the people of God? That's what he's saying here. He wants us to get this. He said, you got to not only be able to cultivate and have a financial relationship and a financial understanding, but you got to have a relationship. Man, I remember Sister Nina, she came by the house and she was helping me do a financial analysis. And that's brutal if you ever had that done before. Because, boy, they just take you and they just strip everything down. She got to know everything. Well, what does this mean? Where does this come from? Why'd you buy this? And as we began to look at my financial analysis, what I found out is that most of the things that were being affected outside were coming because I was spending too much money in the house. Let me break it down. My outside bills were being affected because I was spending too much money on things that were in the house. What I'm saying to us is that sometimes it's the flip side. We spend too much things outside and don't cultivate what needs to be cultivated inside. Break it down a little bit further. You got relationships outside, but what you need to do is focus on the relationships inside. There are people in your own house that you don't have a good relationship with. There are people in your family that you don't have a good relationship with, and now you expect to have a good relationship with God. We need a spiritual analysis to be able to break down where our relationships fall short at. We need a spiritual analysis to show us where the deficit is in our relationships. Here's what I'm saying. Is Christianity, it's not just about a me and God experience. Don't get it misunderstood. Christianity is not just a me and God experience, but Christianity is about me, others, and God. Me, others, and God. Me, others, and God. It reciprocates. What am I saying? What I'm saying here is to you this, is sometimes we have a disconnect with God because we have a disconnect with other people. You can't get your relationship right with God because you can't get your relationship right with your own brother. You can't get your relationship right with God because you can't get your relationship right with your spouse. You can't get your relationship right with God because you can't even get your relationship right with your kids. And so now, what we're seeing here is that there's a problem because the interconnectedness that should be reciprocated, now there's a break in the relationship. It's a break in the relationship. And the problem is that what we see is that there's a disconnect. Matthew 5:23-24 says, watch what he says. He says, make peace with your brother. Then come present your offering. Jesus said, make peace. Before you even give your offering, you can't even be blessed. Oh, watch this. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Watch this. Your finances can't be blessed. Because there is a disconnect with the relationships in your life. And because there's a disconnect with the relationships, there's a disconnect with God. And so when there's a disconnect with God, how can he bless you with more when you can't manage the little? You've been wondering why you ain't got that blessing. You've been wondering why you don't have that breakthrough. You've been wondering why your finances ain't changed. I would dare you to look around and get your analysis of your relationship to see where is the disconnect. But what he's saying to us, watch what he says here in the text. He says, the master commended this dishonest manager because he acted shrewdly or he acted wisely. And then he says this, he said, for the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than the people of light. That means they're more wise in the world than we are in the church. They're more wise in the world than we are in the church. Watch it, because when I first became pastor, I started studying Disney. I started studying Chick-fil-A. I started studying Buc-ee's because these were the companies that are the epitome of what customer service looks like. These are the companies that when you go there, they give you a great experience that makes you want to come back, that makes you want to spend your money. You're going to, it's not a sale in Buc-ee's. But every time we driving down the highway, we stop at Buc-ee's because they have great customer service and the restrooms are absolutely immaculate. But it makes you want to go back. And so what I'm saying to you is today is that we must be the example of customer service. Why is it that we got to go learn from the world? The world should be learning from us. We got the best example there is in Jesus Christ. They ought to be coming into the church saying, how do you guys get people to come back so much? How is it that y'all love people in spite of? How is it that y'all are able to make even the most smallest person seem so important? What is it that we can do here at Disney to become better? But instead, it's the other way around. And so now we look to the world for how they handle their business. Jesus is saying they have a better understanding of what to do than we do. You can go to work and go to work and everything's in order. Everything's in order. Everybody's taking care of business. Things are adding up. And then we come to church and it's chaos. You walk into church and you're mad. Don't nobody want to smile at you, but you go smile in front of them. What? Ooh. Cut that out. Cut that out. But you go smile on your job and put your fake smile on. But then when you come into the house of the Lord, you can't smile at nobody. You can't greet nobody in love. You can't hug your neighbor. And then you want to call yourself a Christian. I stopped by to tell y'all that it's not about what you can do. It's about how you can love somebody else. It's about how we show somebody else that you matter because I represent God. So every time you see me, you see God. That's what that's what it's about. That's what it's about. So prior to him getting fired, watch this, prior to him getting fired, these people were just a number. Look at the text. They were just a number. And now they meant something to him. They were just a number. And now they matter. Here's what I want. If we don't get in, that's why we are the church with outstretched arms, because everybody that walks through that door, they matter. We got got to make sure that everybody that comes through these doors, everybody that sits in these chairs, understand that you matter. You are important. You are worthy. You are worthy of a hug. You're worthy of love. I don't care about what you did in your past, because guess what? I'm a sinner too. That's why this is a paradox right here. That's why I'm justified and unjust. That's me, baby. I'm the one that's unjust. I'm the one that's dishonest. But guess what? I stopped by to tell you today that I am a sinner that has been saved by grace. And I know I ain't good. I know I ain't got it all together. But baby, this is the hospital. And I want you to come in and receive your healing today. I want you to come in and get this medicine for your soul. Get this medicine for your soul today. And I'm done. Watch this. I'm done. But I need you to see this. He says, they got it together. The world knows what to do. So he says, here's what we need to do. We need to use our wealth to gain more friends. We need to use our finances to gain better relationships. And then watch what we say. If and when we do, we won't have just a house, but we will have an eternal house. An eternal dwelling place. So here's what I saw, and this blew up in my mind, because those who were once merely a source of my salary. Look at the text. Look at the text. Look at this man. Look at this manager. Those who were once merely a source of his salary are now a source of his survival. We can't do it without other people. We can't even become the Christian. We can't even become the preacher. We can't become the pastor. We can't become the deacon that we want to be without somebody else, because I need you and you need me. We need each other to survive, because we're all unjust, but we justified. We all sinners, but we saved by grace. We all have been dirty, but now we're washed white as snow. We all have been in the pit, but now we're running back to the Father. We all have been in a situation where we wanted to give up, but I stopped by to tell you today that right when you wanted to give up, he said, Father, forgive them, because they know not what they do. And he stretched his arms out wide, and he hung his head in the locks of his shoulders. They put him in the grave, and he got up early on Sunday morning with all power in his hand. Can I get a little Baptist on y'all right quick? I know y'all don't want to be Baptist no more, but we Baptist today. He got up early on Sunday morning with all power in his hands. I'm talking about early before the cock started crowing, early before the dew hit the ground, early on Sunday morning with all power in his hands. And now I can live right. And now I can love right. And now I can walk right. Now I can talk right. Now I can stand on my feet and say, yet though he slay me, yet will I trust him. It's because he lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. He that had ears to hear, let him hear today.